İlk olarak katılımcılarımıza hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum. Ben Fatma Zehra Demirci. Yasemin hocamızla düzenlediğimiz akademik İngilizce atölyemizin moderatörüyüm. Yasemin hocamıza her türlü yardımda bulunmak için buradayım. İlk olarak hocamızı hafiften tanıtmak istiyorum. Yasemin GÜÇLÜTÜRK, İngiltere doğumlu ve üniversiteyi aynı şekilde İngiltere'de tamamlamış bir hocamız. Kendisi şu an Tömer'de öğretim görevlisi. Bizimle de bu sene özellikle ara atölyemiz olarak katılım göstermek istediğini, daha doğrusu bizim isteğimizi kabul ettiğini belirtti. Kendisine tekrardan çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Yasemin hocamızın aynı şekilde işaret dili hakkında da çok önemli çalışmaları ve tezi var üzerinde çalıştığı. Bunu da küçük bir parantez olarak belirtmek isterim. Derslerimiz hakkında konuşmam gerekirse derslerimiz her cumartesi saat 5'te yapılacak. Derslerimiz totalde ders anlatımı 40 dakika ve soru cevap yarım saat olacak şekilde totalde 70 dakika olacak. Bu iki ara arasında yoklamalar yapılacak. Yoklama son yarım saat kala yapılıyor. Slaytlar hocamız tarafından paylaşılacak. Ben ve grup arkadaşlarım bu konuda her türlü yardıma açık bir şekilde sizinle ilgileneceğiz. Derslerimiz İngilizce işlenecek. Yasemin hocamız İngilizce'de basit bir düzeyde anlatacağını belirtti kendisi. Akademik İngilizce'nin nasıl olduğunu anlatırken ana dilimizin de İngilizce olmasının daha iyi olacağına karar verdiğini belirtti. Soru cevaplar chat kısmına yazılacak. Chat kısmına yazıldıktan sonra ben aynı şekilde sizinle paylaşacağım. Alta şu an yoklamayla ilgili sanırım yazılıyor. Yoklamalarımız en son alınacak. Şu an ekranınızda çıkan yoklama sadece deneme içinde. O yüzden herhangi bir önemi yok. Bununla birlikte bugünkü dersimizden de bahsetmem gerekiyorsa eğer, bugünkü dersimizde Yasemin hocamız genel İngilizce ve akademik İngilizce arasındaki farkları, genel İngilizcenin ilgilendiği ve odaklandığı belli konuları açıklayacağını belirtti. Ben sözü çok uzatmadan kendisine vereyim. Tekrardan hoş geldiniz diyorum. Güzel bir ders diliyorum Yasemin Hoca.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone for attending. When I heard that there were 1,000 or over 1,200 attendees, I was flattered and very excited. I'm so happy to hear that so many people are interested in academic English. Shall we start with our presentation? Let me share the screen. Okay, so our presentation today is on academic English, just like Zehra spoke a few minutes ago. She explained how I was going to carry out this lesson, so I'm just going to get into my presentation. I'm so sorry, I have to move you guys. Now, one of the biggest problems in Turkey that I have faced is everybody thinks academic English and English are the same thing. But the thing is, they're totally different. When we look at general English or social English, it can be said, it's the English that we learn at schools, nursery, secondary school, university, colleges. This is the English we use for our social lives, when we're socializing, when we're having conversations with our friends or our family. The English used in England by everybody, by every British person, is general English. General English is the root of English itself. It's the foundation of English. When we look at academic English, it's just a branch of English. You need to know the root. You have to know general English. Preferably B1 or B2 levels are sufficient enough. You have to know this so that you can learn and improve yourself, enhance yourself in academic English. But if you don't know the structure of English, if you don't know, if you don't have enough vocabulary information about English, there's no way you're going to be able to be successful in academic English. When we look at general English, as I've said, reading, writing, listening, speaking. These are the lessons that we learn in schools. This is very important. You have to have a good education of English. You have to be comfortable using the language, and then you can go on to academic English, or, for example, medical English. That's also another branch, or business English. These are all branches that are on top of general English. What I have come across in Turkey is when I see students, I see them socializing, they're having social conversations using academic English. But academic English is for academic settings, not for social life. If you go to England, you're walking down the street, you meet up with someone. If you use academic English, they will laugh at you because social life needs social or general English. But academic settings, say for example conferences or lectures, or the project assignments that you hand over to your lecturer, these need to be academic English. If you're going abroad, if you're going to study your master's, say for example in England or in America, then you also need academic English. So the English we're using, we have to focus on these settings. If it's an academic setting, then we use academic English. If it's a social setting, then we have to use a social English or general English. They're more or less the same thing. Now, we've seen the differences between the two Englishes. They're not separate languages. They're the same language. One is the foundation, the other is the branch. Now, when we go into academic English, what exactly is academic English? Academic English is actually the formal use of English language. In academic English, if you're preparing a thesis, say for example, you have to use formal English. You cannot use informal English. You cannot use general or social English in your thesis. You have to know the academic language. What is academic language? It's actually the formal English that you sometimes can learn in secondary school. You should learn them, but I'm not quite sure if they do teach formal English in Turkey. I'm not aware of that, but I hope they do, or even just a little information that they give should be sufficient. So academic English is the use of formal English. Where do we use academic English? Just like I've said before, school settings, universities, presentations, conferences, lectures. There are two forms of academic English, the written form and the spoken form. When we look at the spoken form, say if you're in university, you're in your class, your teacher's lecturing, and you realize that they're not using formal English. That can be. You may come across that. When speaking comes into the scene in academic English, you can sometimes leave the formal aside, or not totally though, don't get me wrong. You use academic English, but sometimes you can informalize the words that you choose to use. So you will come across that, even in presentations. Sometimes people will use informal words when presenting. The importance here, which I will go into, the considerations will help you. Now, what considerations are there when you're preparing an academic product? Because what we're doing in academy is preparing a product, mainly written, thesis, project assignments, presentations for conferences, articles. So we have a written form. Why is the written form important? Because this is our product. If we're giving a verbal presentation, we prepare an article from our presentation. Written products are very important for academy. You have to produce loads of articles, project assignments, thesis to graduate. And in writing in academic English, you have to be very careful with the words you use. You have to use the formal English. It's not as laid back as the verbal side of academic English. Now, when we look at academic English, we have 6 considerations that you have to think about. These 6 considerations actually shape your product, may it be verbal or written. Audience is the first, purpose, organization, style, flow, and presentation. These are all important considerations of academic English. Now, I'm going to go into all of them just little by little to give you information because these are actually important. Our first consideration, audience. Now, you may be thinking, why is audience important? It's very important because the people you are addressing while putting across your presentation or while you're writing, you're going to produce a written product to hand over. Who's going to read your article? Who is going to read your text? You have to know, because the audience will shape your product. For example, I'm teaching you all academic English. Yes, I'm here to teach you all about academic English, to give you information. My subject is academic English, but if I was to use academic English when presenting to you all this PowerPoint, my slides, you wouldn't understand because you don't have knowledge. Well, some of you may, but I'm assuming that most of you are students and that are here to learn. So I'm assuming that mostly you don't know academic English. So what must I do? I must simplify the language I use. I must simplify the sentences, the structures I form when I'm talking to you. If I was to go into full academic English, if I was to use full formal structures of English, complex structures, no one's going to understand. That is why the audience is very important. The language I use, the style I use, how I encounter on giving this information, putting this information across depends on my audience. How much information do they know? If they are aware of the subject I'm putting across, then of course I can use the terminology of the area, or I can use formal English, I can use academic English when I'm presenting or writing. But if the audience does not have that much information, then what I must do is I must simplify the words I'm using, the context, the structure, the syntax of my text. And I have to give information. So audience is very important. The second consideration that is important is the purpose. What do we want to do? We want to make a successful display, may it be verbal or written. We want to display our information successfully. We need to know our purpose. If I know my purpose, why am I doing this? Here I'm trying to inform you guys. I want you all to learn. I want you to know the information that I know, so that once these workshops are over, you can go along this road and you can form academic texts. You can be comfortable. You can improve yourself. This is my aim here. But what is your aim in putting across the information that you wish to portray? This is very important, just like the audience. Now, the third one, organization. Organization is another very important consideration in academic English, because we have a product. I'm thinking of producing something with academic English, may it be again verbal or text. I need to structure it properly. I have to know the order in which I want to portray my information. I want to put across my information. If it's all jumbled up, if the listing, if the structure is not right, then I'm not going to give my information correctly. There has to be an order of how you give your information across. If you are unsuccessful in organizing your product, then it's going to be confusing, and the audience that reads your text is going to be confused, and your product is not going to be successful, and it's not going to be as effective as you want it to be. So you have to organize it very genuinely, to the point. When we look at some of the studies that have been put across, we see some structures that have been prepared. The listings you have here is just general, because say, for example, if you're writing a thesis, the structure will be different. If you're writing a review article, the structure is going to be different. If you're writing another form of article, the structure is going to be different. When you're structuring your product, do some research. Look onto how other people have structured their articles, their theses. That will give you some information. That will give you an idea. Pick up on that idea. Try to use it in your own article. Now, when we look at the general structures, we see that first you introduce your work, because you have to introduce it so that the person in front of you knows the subject of your article. Then you state your methods. Which methods are you using? And then you report your results. What have I gained with my research? And then you discuss the findings. Yes, this is my research. And you give the information of what your findings are telling you and what it should tell other people. And then you conclude. This is just a general structure. When you look into, when you're producing something, you have to structure your study effectively. Research is very important. Now, style. What is style? We have a text in our hands, yes? The way we shape our text is very important. If we shape it properly, effectively, then the reader is going to gain all the information that you wish to give across, and it is going to be effective. I believe in something, I have a result, I have a text, and I wish to give it to you and share it with you. If I use the right style, then it will be an effective sharing. One of the One of the ways in which we can style our texts or products is language shifting. Now, what is language shifting? Like I've said throughout the beginning of the workshop, formal and informal. Language shifting means going from one style, the informal style, to the formal style, which is the academic style, because academic English uses formal language. I've given an example here, which I will read to you guys. When we look at a less formal sentence, say, for example, researchers looked at the way strain builds up around a fault. Now, what's the problem? This isn't a wrong sentence. It's a great sentence. What's the problem? Informal. What's the problem? Too long a sentence. Yes, in English we can use, and we do form, very long sentences, but when possible, shorten the sentence especially in academic English. In the past, yes, they used to stretch the sentences out and you would have very long sentences. You'd have one sentence, like a whole paragraph, and it's just one sentence. But lately, we're cutting down on the sentence. We're shortening it. If you can, shorten it. Now, look at the academic sentence at the bottom, the formal sentence. Researchers observed. Now, what am I doing? I've gotten rid of the looked at. I've placed observed. Why use two words when I can only use one? And observed is formal. The second change I've done is I've thrown away the builds up. I've added accumulates. What have I done? I've cut down. Why use two words when I can only use one? Now, when we look into formal grammar and style, it's very important. Here we have 6 tips for when you're trying to bring style to your academic paper. Now, the first tip I have given is avoid contractions. Now, what does contractions mean? Contractions mean you must have come across etc. Now, words like etc., words like, no, so sorry. Yes, words like etc. We're continuing on the sentence. That's a contraction. Okay, don't do that. For example, will not is the formal style of the word, but what are we doing? Won't. In spoken English, you'll come across this very much. For example, I want to go. It's totally informal, but what are we doing? I want to. We're getting rid of the two. We're contracting the two words together. Will not, we're doing the same thing. Won't. Now, in an academic paper, you cannot use won't. Won't is a no-no. You use will not. Do not shorten the words, okay? Spell them out, do not contract them. The second tip I have is using the appropriate formal negatives. There's actually a very long list, but I've only given 3 as an example because I only have 40 minutes, so I'm trying to give as much information as I can without boring anybody. Any is definitely a no-no. Don't use any. If you want to, use no. Much, definitely a no-no. Do not use much in your articles. Use little. Many is a no-no again. Do not use many, use few. Second, limit the use of run-on expressions. Now, what are run-on expressions? I'm listing something. And when I list something, I will say, and so forth, and so on. For example, I went to the market, I bought an apple, a pear, a banana, and so on. Or etc. Again, look, I'm using etc. here as well. Or I use etc. If I'm listing something, we don't do that. What do? I went to the groceries, I bought an apple, a pear, and other fruits. Do not use and so on. Do not use and so forth. Run-on expressions bring your style down. We don't want to do that. We are producing a stylish, formal text. Number 4, my 4th tip. Avoid addressing the reader. That's a big no-no. For example, I have a table. When I present my table, I shouldn't say, you can see the results in the table. That's a no-no. No use. Do not address the reader. How do I put this across? The results can be seen in the table. Okay, addressing the reader is a definitely no-no. Limit the use of direct questions. Now, direct questions, what is that? Asking the reader directly Okay, what can be done to change the situation? That's a direct question. That's a question you're asking the audience. No, no. How can we change this? What must be considered in order to carry out some changes? Okay, I'm not asking you. I'm not asking a direct question. You have to change the uses, just like the you. You do not address the reader. You do not ask direct questions. Now, placing the verbs within the verbs. What do we mean by that? Adverbs, sorry. I said verbs within the verbs. So sorry. Now, when we're addressing, when we're placing the adverbs with the verbs, what it's saying is, don't place the verbs normally are in informal texts. They're either at the beginning or the end. For example, if we say the blood is withdrawn slowly, now that's a no-no. Okay, how do we change that? We add the adverb to the verb directly. The blood is slowly withdrawn. Okay, this is another tip. In the other workshops, the 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to go into detail. I'm just giving general information now, just to give you all an idea of what is academic English and what you must go on to, what you must consider. Oops, so sorry. I'm having a problem with my things. Okay, flow. What is the flow? This is actually another consideration. What do we mean by flow? What we're saying is, we have a text, yes. We know the audience, we know the purpose, yes, we're done with that. We have a structure. Going into the paragraph, when we look at the sentences, how are we linking the sentences? Linking the sentences is very important because it gives a natural flow to your text. But if you have a paragraph with sentences that aren't linked to one another, that is a total no-no. It isn't formal, it isn't effective, it isn't stylish. That is not academic. You have to use proper linking words and phrases for your text. Now, I've given some common linking words and phrases, again, just to give you a little information, just a little idea about what I'm saying about the flow, the linking words. Now, if our first sentence, we've given the information, but we want to add some more information. So what do we say? As a sentence connector, we can use furthermore, in addition, moreover. As for phrase linkers, we can say in addition to. As for adversatives, we've given the information, now we want to give an adversative. Adversative view with the second sentence, we can say although, even though, despite the fact that, in subordinates. But for sentence connectors, we can use however, nevertheless. As phrase linkers, despite, in spite of. Now here what we're doing is we're giving two adverse information, but we're linking them together because your text has to be structured out. You need a natural flow to your sentence. Now for cause and effect, in the first sentence we've given the information, now we're actually giving another information about the cause or the effect of the first information. What do we use? In subordinates, we say because, since. For sentence connectors, we use therefore, as a result. For phrase linkers, we use because of, due to, as a result of. How about clarification? We are clarifying our second sentence. What do we do? In other words, that I or IE. I don't know if you have all come across IE. it can be seen. It actually means in other words, and it is mainly used in academic English. For contrast, I want to create a contrast to my first sentence. What do I say? While, whereas in subordinates, in sentence connectors, in contrast. However, on the other hand, as for phrase linkers, unlike. Now, if I'm trying to illustrate something, what do I use? In my second subordinates, I say, for example, for instance, and carry on explaining. For intensification, I want to intensify the information I'm giving. But again, it's related to the first sentence. I say, on the contrary, as a matter of fact, in fact. Now, these three subordinates, I can say that they are very effective. Now, I have this problem when I'm writing. I wrote my thesis in Turkish and I'm still writing one in Turkish. It's very difficult because sometimes I'm not aware of how strong the words I use are. I am actually a native Turkish speaker, but unfortunately my Turkish is not as good as my English. So I do have a problem there. The words have meanings, and I don't know how strong the meanings are. What you must do, if you want to produce an effective product, you have to know how strong these meanings are. You have to know what these words are. My biggest advice, learn these words and many more. Learn where you can put what so that you can have an effective product at hand. Punctuation examples for linking words. Now you're probably thinking, we know punctuation. Yes. For Turkish, you all know punctuation. Great. Yes. If you're B1, B2 users of English, I'm sure you know punctuation as well. Punctuation is very important. I actually have a problem with the conjunctions in Turkish. I will come to that at the end. For subordinators, if we're using because, if, while, we put a comma at the end. For example, birds fly, comma, while fish swim. That's our subordinators. Move that to the side. Connectors. When we use however, thus, and also as connectors, we use a semicolon or period. Now, what are they? Birds fly, semicolon, however, comma, fish swim. As for the conjunctions, now, in Turkish, unfortunately, we don't use commas with and or but. This is a very big problem for me, I'm afraid, because I'm used to using commas with ands and buts, and I tend to do that as well. And I have a very big problem with that. So, and, but, or, you must use comma, but, not with every and, not with every but, not with every or. If you're using and, but, or as a conjunction, you have to use a comma before it. But if you're not using it as a conjunction, then you can't use a comma. For example, in the example sentence below, birds fly, comma, but fish swim. If I was to say, I was walking home and just then I saw my teacher, I'd put a comma. But if I was to say, again, I was walking home, comma, and I saw my teacher and her son. In the second comma, it's not a conjunction, so I do not use a comma there. Punctuation is very important because it changes the meaning, especially commas. If you use commas in wrong places, you're changing the meaning of your text, which is a no-no. You have to be very careful how you use your punctuations. Now, finally, what are we doing? We are presenting our work. Now, we can present our work in many structures. We can carry out presentations at conferences. You can put across your study, or maybe a lecture, or writing a thesis, a written form of product. There are some questions you must ask yourself, but these are the questions you should ask yourself at the end, because you have considered everything. You have a product at hand. Once it's finished, you have to go back to it and take a look from the outside. Ask yourself these questions that I'm going to tell you now, so that you can have a perfect, very successful product at hand. Now, you have to consider the format. For example, does it look like it's been carefully prepared? If you're producing something academic, it has to look stylish, like there's been effort, like effort has been put into it. This is very, very important. Another thing, are there clear paragraphs? You may think it's not very important, but these are actually very important, especially in written academic English. The paragraphs have to be clear. The reader must know when it's beginning, when it's ending, what is this paragraph talking about, what it is, what information is it giving me. And the line spacing, you're probably thinking, why? But it's very important, because you're doing serious things here, okay? You want it to be effective, and the visual side is very important. Now, proofreading for grammar mistakes. Do the subjects and verbs agree in your sentences? This is very important. You have to use proper English. You don't want mistakes, because you want to display it successfully. No mistakes. Have the appropriate verb tenses been used? Have the A and the articles been used where necessary? Sometimes I come across in my students in Turkey, they put the everywhere. Wherever I look, I see people adding the article the on every word. And I'm like, no, please don't. Do not add the on every word, please. Okay, be careful where you use them. The articles are very important. You have to use them in the right place. And is the use too much? Just like I said before, sometimes some of my students do use them very much. So please do pay attention to that. And like I said, punctuation is very important too. Finally, checking for misspelled words. Has the correct homophone been used? For example, the word to, and to. Now they seem like three of them are very the same word, but they're not. The first two, spelled with a T-O-O, for example, too much, I'm coming to. And the second two is the T-O, I'm going to school. He's coming to me. And the third two is the T-W-O, the number two. Now the first two and two are always confused. I've come across this many times. Sometimes people prefer to use the two with one O many more times than they do use the two. You see, the two and the two are very different. You have to know whether to use them correctly. If you're not sure, do not use them. That's my biggest advice to you. If you are not sure of how you want to, or how you have to use something, do not use it. Or ask someone, get the help and do it right. Spell check routines. You know how Word has a spell check? I do this very much, and I have to say they can't be trusted. Do not trust word check. Do not trust word check on Word. Why? Because sometimes you think it's totally right. Yes, it's brilliant, but it turns out that there are many mistakes. Word check does not know what you want to say in a certain sentence. It only guesses. and it only sees the words that it thinks it's wrong. But you can never know. So always check yourself or have someone check it. I use word check a lot when I'm writing, especially my thesis. But I can say, my dear Dr. Macrola, my lecturer, I'm giving him a lot of hard time, because when it's in Turkish, I'm spell checking, and spell check says that it's brilliant. And I'm like, yes, no mistakes. And then after I get my text back from my lecturer, I'm like, God, how can I make that mistake? So seriously, spell check is good, but up to a point. Once you've finished with spell check, go back, check it yourself from start to end, okay? That's very important. Now, when we leave the written English English to the side, how about the spoken? In presentations, say, for example, you're in a conference, there are 100, 200, 300 people, maybe 1,000 people, you don't know. They're coming to listen to you. You've prepared your text, you've prepared your slide, you're going to address the audience, you're going to tell them, what must you do? What do you have to consider? Now, because you have stuck to all the considerations that I've said, you have a brilliant text at hand. This actually makes it easier for you, because you have a product in your hand. All you have to do is present it. Now, when you're presenting in text, like I said right at the beginning of the workshop, you have to stick to formal English in your text. It has to be good. There's no room for informal language, okay? But in spoken language, you will come across this by your lecturers, by academic presentations that maybe you watch. You will see informal words being used. That's okay, because in spoken presentations, you can be relaxed, okay? It's not as rigid as it is in written texts. So be comfortable, okay? Trust in yourself, believe in yourself. Try to use academic English, but try to also use informal too. It's not a problem, it's okay. Your aim is to get your information across. Now, I can see people, I'm assuming, I'm going into your heads, I'm assuming that you guys are thinking, yes, but I don't know how to pronounce the words. That's a very big problem, yes. For example, I have the same problem in Turkish, though I'm luckier because I'm native. There are some words that I have problems pronouncing in Turkish. I still can't pronounce anyway, we'll leave that to the side. Pronouncing, yes, it's very important, because if you have an effective pronunciation, then everybody's going to understand you. But if you don't, then it's going to be slightly difficult. Some of my new students, I've just come across them and their English isn't great, they try to talk in English, but they're actually talking in Turkish, pronouncing the words in Turkish. It's very difficult understanding them. I'm a teacher, I'm there to teach them properly, so I'm listening to them, trying to understand them. If I don't, I pretend I do. I'm so sorry for all my students, but I have to do that. I pretend I do, and I ask them other questions to understand what they're saying. But you're in a presentation, you want everyone to understand you. If you want people to understand you, you have to work on your pronunciation. How can you work on your pronunciation? You can go to courses, speaking lessons. It can be very effective, because in my lessons that I teach speaking, I go into pronunciation, because pronunciation is very important, especially stress on the words is important. Along with this, what can you do if you don't have time for lessons, for courses? Watch as many academic presentations as you can, because when you start hearing the words being pronounced, you start to learn, because in your brain system, you start to pick up on, just like watching shows on TV or series. As you watch them, you're learning the words and you're learning how to pronounce them. But academic English is different because there's terminology in academic English. So watching series or shows is not going to help you improve the pronunciation in academic English. So what do? Watch academic presentations as much as you can. That will help improve. Okay, I've just gone over 40 minutes. I'm very sorry for that. Thank you very much for listening. It was seriously a pleasure to have you all here, and hopefully in the rest of the workshops we will have fun, and we will go into the articles. I'll be going to the introductions. In every workshop we will be going into an area. We're going to get down into the mud. Okay, thank you very much for listening.
I'd like to thank you for this wonderful lesson. It was so good.
Thank you.
Now I will share the attendance screen. The attendance screen should be in front of you. If you cannot see it, please write your name on the group that you are connected to. So yes, it should be seen. Yeah. Okay, now it's time to take the questions. Miss Yasemin, should I read the questions or would you like to answer them by yourself?
Okay, let me open chat up. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm very glad. Thank you for these good remarks. If I don't understand them, I'll ask you, Zehra, is that okay?
Okay.
Because I sometimes have difficulty understanding, especially Turkish, written Turkish.
Yeah. I also would like to thank you again for this lesson.
Thank you very much. Oh, I hope so. Well, we've got 5 lectures, 5 workshops in front of us. I hope you'll like all of them too. Oh, I'm going to give you all homework at the end of the second workshop, because I want to give you all time so that you can have time to prepare it, go along with the lessons that we've done. I'll send that to you guys at the end of the second workshop, and also at the end of the 5th workshop, I plan to give you guys a list of references of which you can read into to give you an idea to help you all.
3 people raised their hand, but please write your questions in the chat so Miss Yasemin can read them.
I'm not going from the book. Someone's asked for a recommendation for this course. I'm not going to go from a book. Okay, I'm not following a book. I'm preparing these presentations, and in the other lectures, we're going to go on articles. Okay, we're going to see these articles. We're going to work on the articles. But at the end, I will give you some references that you guys can use in your lives after the workshop. Thank you. Yes, I believe the homeworks are for getting a certificate. How can you improve your English? One of my advices would be reading. Seriously, reading helps you to learn language. When I came to Turkey, well, I was living in England. I used to think I had great Turkish. And then we settled in Turkey. When I started talking to Turkish people, especially in hospitals, I would go to a hospital and my mum would translate to me. It's like I'd get out and say, what did the doctor say? Because I don't understand anything. My Turkish was seriously terrible. How did I improve? I studied a lot. I read a lot. Reading seriously helps you learn a language. And for pronunciation, yes, you don't know the proper pronunciation, but I would advise you guys to read out aloud, okay? But don't disturb the household. You don't want your mother or your dad to come at you saying, be quiet. That's we don't need that, so. I thank you. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Okay, I hope I don't miss out on any of the questions. For academic English, like I said, I'm sure you'll be able to come across many presentations, academic presentations on YouTube, but if you like, I can prepare a list to give also of these videos. Maybe if I'll look into them, and I will also give you a list. Like I said, I am going to give you a list of books and articles that you can read to help you improve your academic English at home. Okay, what I mean by addressing the reader is when you're writing your text, don't say you. For example, never say, from the results in the table, you can see that it was a successful study. Do not use you, as in the Y-O-U. Instead, it can be seen. Okay, that's what I mean by addressing the reader. If you say you can see, look at the table, you do this, that's addressing the reader. We do not want to address the reader. That's informal. I hope I'm able to explain. Presentations are different. When I talk about addressing the reader, I'm talking of the written side of academic English. If you're preparing a thesis, if you're preparing an article, if you're preparing an assignment or a project, there you do not use you. But if you're in a presentation at a conference, verbal, then when using verbal English, like I said, it's a more relaxed setting. So sorry, presentations at conferences are a more relaxed setting, so you can use you can address the audience. And I very much like to address the audience, especially my study area is sign language. And whenever I do give presentations on sign language, I like to address to the audience because I want them to join me. I want to share my ideas with them. Having interaction in presentations is very good, but limit it because you're in a formal setting. It's an academic setting. Do not go over the line too much. Okay, have interaction, address the audience, but not too much. You have to know the level. Well, if people want it, I would love to give verbal academic English, not oral academic English. So I cannot stop but correct people. Translating is actually another thing. I would advise you need to know English if you want to translate your abstract from Turkish to English. You can use Turing. I like Turing as a dictionary, online dictionary. I've always preferred using it. The main thing, this is actually going out of academic English, but when you're translating, what is important is that you translate the message, not the words. Okay, so if I have a paragraph of Turkish, translating it from word to word is a no-no. That is not a good piece of translation. If you want to translate effective, good translation, then all you have to do is give the meaning. Okay, so they're not going to be the same text, but the meaning of the texts have to be the same. Go on meaning, not word for word translation. I'm fine, thank you. Irakli, how are you? I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. What's the most important thing in English? Well, just like any language, being able to put your information across. Now, I can't say reading is more important than writing, or writing is more important than speaking, or speaking is more important than listening. It's actually a whole. Okay, when you read something, you have to be able to understand it. When you listen, you have to be able to understand it. To improve your English, my biggest advice, again, Irakli, is watch English shows, English series, documentaries. I would seriously advise you all to watch documentaries, because the words, the pronunciations are very clear in documentaries, but in series they can round the R's off very much, which would be very difficult for you. Read a lot. Reading will always help. Nejdit, thanks a lot for presentation. Do you have any suggestions for study? For vocabulary, again, I'm going to go back to this. Reading. Now, you could get a list from A to Z from a dictionary, list the words down, or read an article, list the words down, and you can learn them off by heart. But the problem is here, you're just learning the words off by heart. You're not actually gaining vocabulary. You're not learning the language. If you want to learn the language, you must read. The more you read, the more words you will learn. Now, when you start reading, there are going to be many words that you don't understand. What do? Underline them, or make a list on another paper. Write down the meanings. In one book, you're going to come across one word 100, 200 times. When you come across these words, at the beginning, you're going to constantly be checking the dictionary, but towards the end of the book, you're going to have learned the word, and not only the word, you're going to learn the structures of English. So reading is very precious. Seriously, read as much as you can. And for academic English, read academic papers. BBC's online channel, I don't know if this is going to advertising, but they have great articles on there. I would advise you. Thank you, Mustafa. When? Okay. I would say, Marve, of course, as long as you read as much as you can. Every country has its own culture. Learning culture is actually very important, I would say. While reading, you're learning, and you're learning a language. It's not a problem. You may find it difficult, but in time, it will all settle down and you will be comfortable. Information about yourself. Okay. I, like Zehra said before, I was in England for 25 years. I grew up there. I'm bilingual, both English and Turkish. I'm hoping that my Turkish will be as good as my English. I'm working on it, and it will be one day. Right now, I'm working at Ankara University. At Tömer, I'm a lecturer. I'm in the Turkish Sign Language department. At the same time, I'm in the English department giving speaking lessons. And I'm working on my thesis right now on pluractionality in Turkish Sign Language. I say that's enough information about me. Thank you, Fahrettin. Thank you, Beyza. Studying vocabulary again. Like I said, books, seriously, reading will help improve your vocabulary. It's very effective. Seriously, read as much as you can. Also, you know how I said reading out aloud? That's very effective. Read out as loud as you can. Well, not as loud as you can, but as many times as you can. Phrasal verbs, are they important? Yes, they are, but what's important is that you know the language. Okay, learning things off by heart is not good. Another way, especially for academic English, I would say write, produce something. Find a topic, find a subject, start writing. Because as you start writing, you're going to see your mistakes, you're going to correct yourself. And the more mistakes you make, the better you're going to be. Write as much as you can. Practice makes perfect. Mistakes will take you a long way. Okay, so write as much as you can. Look to learning the language, not learning it off by heart. Okay, because if you're learning something off by heart, it's just like preparing for a theatre. You're learning the script, you're out there on the scene, presenting it, and then it's gone. You don't know it, you just learned it off by heart. Learn the language itself. Thank you, Shayda. Thank you, Ibrahim. If we have a word limit for writing. Just like before, what was the example? I can't remember. You can sometimes shorten sentences. You can use less words and give the same information. That goes for Turkish and any language. Try to use as less words as you can. But my advice is, yes, you have a word limit. Write it down first without considering the word limit, and then work on shortening your text. Okay, write first and then shorten it. Political speaking, Fahrettin. Well, you could listen to politics, but that would improve your language for political sciences. You see, in academic English, we have different branches. For example, my branch is sign language and linguistics. I'm a linguist. So I know the terminology for that area, and the language and the terminology I use is related to this. But say a person from the biology department, the language they use, the terminology they use is totally different. If your study area is politics, then yes, you should read politics. Sorry, listen to politics. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did actually try to talk slowly. I was constantly stopping myself because I do get carried away sometimes. When I talk, I can run off. I'm very sorry. Next workshop, I promise I will try to slow down a bit more. Thank you, Aysun. I haven't actually decided on the homework. I'm planning on leaving the subject to you all, but I'll give you guys a clearer idea next workshop. How can we speak British English? Watch English shows, watch English series, because British English and American English, yes, they're both English, but they're totally different. As you can tell, the accents are very different. They round it off. And sometimes even words, for example, in England, we say pavement. In America, they say sidewalk. So you have different words as well. If you want to improve yourself in British English, I would say watch British shows, watch British series, seriously. Watching, because listening helps you improve very much, and it will help you out on your pronunciation. 2 languages, Beza. You could concentrate on 2 languages, but that's a little personal. It depends on your personal traits. For example, I know Turkish Sign Language, and at one time I wanted to learn British Sign Language as well, but because my Turkish I was working on my Turkish as well, I had a problem, so I had to leave British Sign Language. Personally, I wouldn't go into learning British Sign Language now. Once I'm done with Turkish, then I will go into learning British Sign Language, but that is for me. I don't want to confuse myself. You have to try it. See how it goes. Try learning both of the languages. If you're comfortable, if you're learning and you're not having any problems, then continue. It's not going to be a problem. Some people are very good language learners. They're very quick. So if you can, just give it a go. Check it out, see if you can. If you can't, then just leave one of them. Once you've totally learned one of the languages, then you can move on to the other, but you have to check it out for yourself. Okay. Well, usually we try to stay away from I as well. We prefer we, or to never even use both of them. Okay, I don't know how long we've had Zehra. Should we call it?
Miss GÜÇLÜTÜRK, we have 5 minutes more, but we can finish it.
Okay.
If you want to.
Okay, then I'm just going to quickly check these out.
Of course.
Okay, there are many questions. If I can, I will look onto them and try to answer them in the next workshop. What can I say to wrap it up? Watch as many films, no, articles, many presentations as you can would be my advice. And thank you for watching. It was a pleasure to have you all here. That's it from me, and I will try to answer these questions in the next workshop.
Okay. I'd like to thank you again, Ms. GÜÇLÜTÜRK, for this amazing presentation. Our lesson is over. Thank you for attendance, and we will be here at 5 p.m. on the next Saturday. Thank you again.